our Cozy Earth promo code is about to change at the end of the month. So if you want to get 41% off Cozy Earth bedding, clothing, bath, you need to use that now. The code will change after the end of February. So that is 41% off. Use LTE at checkout. We have found a fantastic skincare brand called lifeWhether. And are you ready for this? They sell Botox in a tube.
And I can attest, I've been using it for a couple of weeks and I am actually seeing results from it. So I like it.
I have also started it. Now, I will say it has an orange tint to it.
So I've seen people talk about this and yeah, I have olive skin. So I rub this in and I don't really see it, but I also just wear it at night.
I have the skin of a killer, Bella, and it really shows up on my face. Fortunately, Jeff is very used to me doing all kinds of things to my
So it
face
doesn't
at
think
night.
twice about it.
No, he doesn't think twice about it, and honestly, I don't care. So I do want to give a disclaimer that it has a bit of a tint. I'm doing it at night, so I'm doing it with my skincare routine at night, but I love it. I'm only about 2 weeks in. I do think I'm starting to see results, and 30 days is the minimum time that they say that you really start to see results. So maybe we'll do some fun before and after photos on our Instagram because they're giving us 21% off if you use the code LTE at checkout, and that's loveindus.com. We found a fantastic sports bra company called Handful. Get it? We love their sports bras. I am very particular. I know you are too.
I am, yes.
Yeah, we need something that has good support, but it's not going to suffocate you. It's not going to make you feel nauseous from having something too tight. Handful has a really great mission. They started their company to help women after reconstructive breast surgery. And they have these patented inserts that are cooling. They help shape and lift your chest. And normally I would just throw out the inserts. I like these. And they're very easy to remove and put back in for washing. The bra itself that I got is the cute little mesh front
It is
zip
really
line.
cute.
It's so cute and it's very comfortable, but it supports me. So if I'm going for a run, I feel like I'm not going to get back pain from that. So handful.com, enter the promo code LTE and get 30% off at checkout. Tona activewear.
I love the pant.
They're all I want to reach for.
Everybody talks about buttery soft. These things are buttery soft. They also stay put.
But that's what I was going to say. They stay put.
And that's really important.
And when you do the squat test, they're not sheer. They stay put. They feel luxurious. They feel thicker, but they're not. They're thin. They're light. They wear really well. And I've been wearing them every week.
Oh, yeah.
I love Tona activewear. Also, yo, my butt looks good in them. It does. I have to say, toot toot. I'm going to toot my own horn. It looks really good in them. We can offer our listeners 16% off with the promo code LTE at checkout. So for our listeners, go to tonaactive.com and enter LTE at checkout. Welcome back to Less Than Expert. We have a very special guest with us because you are one of my favorite people on the entire planet, Allison McNearney. So Allison, she's amazing. She is a writer. She is a creative mindset coach. You write for New York Times, Daily Beast, National Geographic, amazing stuff. And we are doing a little bit of a mini series on surviving and planning for a layoff. And you have experience with this?
I have experience with this.
Yes.
This is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Fairly recent experience with it a year ago. So yeah, I'm excited to be on the podcast and to be talking to you all about it.
So yeah, thank you so much, because obviously this is a very vulnerable topic, but I think something that we've all been talking about, and
Terrifying times.
And something that's happening more and more often in corporate America. You unfortunately were on the receiving end of that, or maybe fortunately. And so we're going to dive into that. So welcome, Allison. We're so glad to have you here.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, we're just going to ask you a bunch of questions. You just tell us what you're comfortable talking about or not. So you are a writer. You've been a journalist and a writer for 15 years.
Yeah.
But you took a W-2 job. Let's dig into that first.
Sure.
So what did that look like? How long were you there? When did all that start? Just to kind of set us in a timeline here.
Absolutely. So I worked in a newsroom at the start of my career for about 5 years and then went freelance and was working for myself, mostly writing, editing, doing various things in kind of the journalism, broadly speaking, world. And then what is time?
I know.
April 2023, it must have been. I saw a job come up somewhere for an in-house editor for a publication that a company wanted to start. And it was just one of those too good to be true jobs. I was in a place where I could really use the extra money, the airtight benefits, have a matching 401k again. It all sounded great. And so I just applied on a whim and ended up getting the job. One of those where I kind of just took a leap to see what it was like to be back in a corporate workforce, and worked there for about a year. And then the company decided that they just weren't quite sure what they wanted to do with the publication. It no longer really aligned with what they wanted to do. So they laid our entire team off.
Brutal.
Yeah.
And did you see that coming?
Looking back, I should have, but I did not see it coming in the moment. I thought, I didn't see it coming. So it was a bit of a surprise.
So, before we go into the layoff and after, let's talk about, in hindsight, what some of those
signs
have
been.
Yeah, I felt a little bit like a chicken with my head cut off, as far as I wasn't quite sure what direction the higher ups for me wanted to go in with the publication, and was having a little bit of trouble getting answers on that. And that was really the big thing is I thought that they were just very laid back about what we were doing, and we had a long runway to figure out what we were doing. But in retrospect, I think that was really a sign that, they weren't quite sure that this really fit in with their business goals and what they wanted to do. And so I think that was the sign I should have read.
We are witnessing that too. When there's no clarity around the role, or you start to get sidelined, or maybe you've always been kind of invisible, that's a red flag. It's kind of problematic. And I think we all tell ourselves, like, well, this is functioning like a startup, or we wear a lot of hats at this company. Right. Yeah.
So
because the company's going to look out for the company, right? And so they're going to give you a script, or, rah until the last minute. I think I'm going to use the word trap. Without clarity of the role and having a defined purpose and direction, it's something that should set off alarm bells.
It is. And it's also, I know we're going to get into this later, but one other thing that I really want to point out with that is when that happens, I fell into this trap with the layoff. I totally understood the decision they made. And frankly, I was really excited about what I wanted to build outside, afterward. Obviously, I was very upset to be laid off, but in a way it was an opportunity. But when you don't have the clarity like we're talking about, and you feel like you're it's so easy to fall into this trap after you're laid off of, oh, there's something I could have done differently. And the messaging they sent me, they gave me the entire time that we were being laid off was like, this had nothing to do with me, with my team. It just it was businesses decide that they want to put their resources other places. But I had a really hard time in the after effect of that, not saying, oh, was there something I could have done differently? So I think that that's really hard too, it's really easy to second guess yourself when you don't have a lot of information.
We need to talk about that more. Let's talk about mindset. If you can recall how you were feeling up to the layoff, were you feeling confident, and then it was a blow to your ego and the sort of like the vision you had of yourself in a role, or were you already kind of feeling like, I'm not grounded in this role? Is there something I could be doing?
That's a good question. I think that I probably was feeling a little bit less confident in the role, and it was probably because I felt like I wasn't getting
direction.
Yeah, the direction that I needed to get.
Fair.
Yeah. And I think I, in the moment, took that as a lack of confidence in myself, when really it was just, the circumstances. And so I think that's one of those signs where, looking back, I'm like, I think all of the signs for how I was feeling and also what was happening around me were probably there. And I think they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do. And so when it happened, I was both shocked and also, I wasn't upset. I sort of was like,
you knew something was off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was going with that is, it's like, is it imposter syndrome, or are your instincts telling you something's not aligning here?
Yes.
Right? And then you have to have that sort of self-awareness after the layoff, I think, to not carry that and internalize it as like, I could have done something differently. Because in reality, there's probably nothing you could or would have changed, right? But you tell us, like, what?
Well, I mean, I think in reality, the reality is there's always something you could or would have changed. Would that made of a difference? I don't think so. I don't know. And I think the important message also is it doesn't matter whether you were laid off because just the project is something that people no longer want to invest in, or whether you were laid off because it wasn't the right fit for you and there was stuff you could have done
Sure.
differently. I think the key is processing it in a way that you're
Mhm.
able to move on.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times it's out of our hands and there's nothing we could have done. And so making sure that you don't lose confidence over something that's out of your hands. But that's not to vilify people who maybe there was something they could have done differently. I want to make sure that those
Or
people.
just you still feel like that anyway.
Yeah, or you still feel
Yeah.
like that anyway. Yeah, I think that it's so, the world we live in, we so closely tie our self-worth to the jobs we're in.
100%.
And so it's
Yeah.
really hard not to let that affect you no matter
Yeah.
what the circumstances are.
Yeah, it feels personal. Even if you know it's coming or you're prepared for it, as prepared as you can be, it feels personal because it's the severing of a tie, and we are so wrapped up
Yeah.
in the
It's an
role.
ego blow. I mean,
It is.
ego blow is hard no matter where it's coming from. And even if it has nothing to do with that, really.
It's like your value. Why can't they see it? Why can't
I
they?
know,
Why
like,
can't
why
they
me?
figure it out?
What did
Yeah.
I do?
No, and so this mindset, the layoff happened. You walked away.
Mhm.
How did you work through that?
That's why I love being a coach, because I want to help people do things better than I did.
Same.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I'm a pretty rational person. So in the
Yeah.
moment that it happened, I was like, I completely get it. I can tell that this is something that, priorities had just changed and the
Mhm.
company is not invested in. And I understand the reasoning why. And in a weird twist of fate, I actually, before I had gotten the job, I had started training to be a coach to get my coaching certification.
And you didn't stop.
And I continued doing it at a much slower pace while I was in the job. I found out the day I was laid off that I passed my coaching certification.
I mean, talk about
Yeah.
meant to
That
be.
A few hours before. And so when it actually happened, and it was the way that I think it happens a lot, where
Yeah.
2 hours before me and the other woman on my team got
Yeah.
a weird meeting added to our calendars.
Mhm.
And I was clueless because this is the first time it had happened to me. She's also a journalist and has been in journalism forever. Journalism, it's been so rough for the past 5 to 10
Mhm.
years, a lot of layoffs. So she was the one that told me, she was like, I think we're getting laid off. And
thank God for that.
and thank God for that. Yeah. So I had a little bit of a warning. So in
Yeah.
that moment when it happened, I completely understood why it was happening.
Mhm.
And I was kind of excited because I was like,
Mhm.
I have these other things that are kind of,
Chapter just opened.
yeah, that feel like they're my things. They're the things I want to build for
Mhm.
me that I'm excited to dive into. And so I think I sort of gaslit myself into thinking that I was completely okay about being laid off.
Yeah. Okay.
And didn't realize till months later that, as I was slower to get things started than I
Mhm.
wanted to be, that I think that it had kind of seeped into my psyche,
Mhm.
this idea of, oh, maybe it was something I had done. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe what are people saying about me that I was laid off? And that's what I wish I had brought to the surface and dealt
Yeah.
with earlier on. Because I think you're always going to go through something like that when you're laid
Yeah.
off. And the
Yeah.
key is to deal with it and not let it sort of sabotage you
Yeah.
underground with whatever else you're moving on to.
I think that's also particularly challenging, although also it's the way to go, is going from a W-2, a full-time job with benefits, to then getting something up and running yourself versus
Yeah.
just finding another job. Finding another job in this market
Daunting.
is so
But
daunting.
honestly, they both seem kind
Exactly.
So I don't know.
They're both hard.
Yeah, they're both, and because it's on you. And so that's pretty amazing self-awareness that you could look back and say, I'm not getting this up and running as fast as I want to be. What's holding me back?
Mhm.
So when you started to have that realization, did you have a therapist? What tools did you have to help you work through that? Because now, the beauty is now you can apply and help your clients with this,
Absolutely.
and you'll recognize it. But how did you get yourself out of
Yeah,
that place?
absolutely. I did have a therapist that helped me out a little bit with this. I also found a community of basically a business coaching community for solopreneurs.
We need this.
It's
We're gonna
mostly
need that
women. It's
info.
great. I'm happy to share it. It's
Yes,
an
please.
incredible community that I joined that's mostly solopreneurs, a lot of women, very heavily dominated by women.
I like
And mostly people who were trying to start their own thing, but also trying to do it in a way that was opposed to this, 9 to 5, but 80-hour a week
Yes.
work lifestyle that has
Yeah.
just seemed to define America.
The grind, the hustle,
The
culture.
grind, the hustle, yeah.
Ew.
And it's just
impossible.
And we're
exactly.
just I think that works when you're young, in your
People
20s.
know, yeah.
You have the energy and you have the optimism, but I think it's different when you are 30s and 40s and you understand the value of work-life balance. That doesn't
I feel like having kids kind of forces that on you.
does.
Like,
Yeah.
whether you want it or not,
Yeah.
you have to implement work-life balance at that point
You
because
do. You have to cut. You have to say no to
yeah.
things and cut things. But you've also reached that point too. You don't have kids, but you are so excellent at setting boundaries and finding that time for yourself. And you also come from a place of yes, like you kind of figure out how to make it work.
You say that, but also it's a constant. You always
Yeah.
have to work at it. I found myself over the last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
going to do whatever I was doing in the evening and then coming back and working the second shift. And
Yeah.
a couple days ago, I was like, you've got to stop. This is like
Yeah.
a
Exhausting.
road to burnout when you do
Yeah.
that, which I know how that affects me and it's really bad.
Again,
So
the self-awareness there.
exactly.
So you had therapy.
Yeah, so I had therapy, which helped a little bit, but it was mostly just finding a community of
Yeah.
other people in sort of a coaching style community,
Mhm.
where I was able to get coaching through that to really help me figure out both the practical side of like how do I want to start this business right
Mhm.
this time. The first time I was freelancing, I didn't have an LLC.
Mhm.
I didn't do those things. So I wanted to make sure that it was all in place this time.
Okay.
But also just having a group of people that really understand what you're going through and
Mhm.
can be that support. And then I think honestly, the other answer is I did not put the supportive things in place that I
Mhm.
should have. I think,
Mhm.
I'm about a little bit over a year out from that. And it's just in the past few months that I feel like I've really started to gain the momentum that I wish I had had
Yeah.
months earlier. So I
Yeah.
think, had I recognized it, I wish I would have earlier got a personal coach or
Mhm.
taken a vacation and
Yeah.
not just felt like I have to work through everything.
Okay. So on that note, like,
Yeah.
going back to when it first happened, what do you think are some important things or things that you maybe did or should have done to just kind of get through that first period
Mhm.
of like figuring things out and trying to figure out, okay, where do I go next?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of practicalities that you have to deal with right away. And so it's not like you get laid off and then you can go take a week off.
Okay.
I feel like really starting to get those balls rolling the next week is kind of important, whether that's figuring out what you want to do with your healthcare.
Yeah, I
Whether you
wanna
want
dig
to,
into
yeah,
that.
you can dig into that. Go on
Yeah.
Cobra, buy your own insurance,
Mhm.
dealing with all of the financial stuff of do you have options that you need to or want to exercise? You're signing contracts to sever or get severance.
Mhm.
You're dealing with a lot of the nitty-gritty. One other thing that is like my biggest thing that I absolutely screwed up was I did not understand how unemployment works or
Okay.
when you can file for that. But note to anybody out there, you do not have to wait until after your severance runs out. You're able to file
You
for
immediately
unemployment
file.
Good
the
to
immediate day. And
know.
I just totally missed the boat on unemployment, frankly, for
Okay.
reasons.
That's
But
very good.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
good. That's good
yeah,
to know because one of the things we like to do on this podcast is also give like very like exactly what you're talking about, the very tactical steps. So,
Yeah.
the day of, did they make you sign something? Did you feel like you had time to review with a lawyer? Like what the health insurance, I really want to dig into that,
yeah, yeah.
especially because of these new premiums and
Yes.
what's going on with.
Did you feel like you could negotiate
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
severance package?
Yeah, all good questions. So just to wrap up what you asked real quick, I would say give yourself a week or two to deal with that and then give yourself time off.
Mhm.
And make sure that you give yourself that time off, whether you can take a long weekend or a week or two. Everybody's finances are different, but make sure that you build into what you're doing, the
Mhm.
decompression, the relief from
crying.
burnout,
Probably
the
just
just
sit on my couch.
crying,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
getting a community of support around you, whether that's friends, whether that's
Mhm.
professionals, whatever it is, but actually knowing that you're going to need those things in place.
I love that.
But yeah, so to go back to the practicalities.
Mhm. Okay, so let's start.
Okay.
You're in the meeting with HR. They're telling you, they're giving you the we have to let you go. What are they asking you to do right then and there?
So, one thing that I was completely unprepared for because in the journalism world, it's a little less professional, so things don't go
No.
the same way they do in the corporate world.
Oh, no.
This was the corporate world, so I was used to a little bit of a loosey goosey, things happen. So I was very unprepared for the fact that even though it was a no fault termination,
Right.
all of that stuff, I'm pretty sure within 15 minutes of my call with HR ending,
Yeah.
I was shut out of my computer.
Oh, wow.
And, shut out of everything, which, I was so shocked by that I even asked, I was like, did I do something wrong? Like, is it me? Is this normal? And she was like, this is normal. This
Right.
is just the way it happens. So, if you think that that things are heading this way, I would definitely back up any contacts you
Okay.
need, any, you know, like
Work you've done.
data. I don't mean company data, but I mean
Yeah.
like, you know, I had kind of lost access to like the numbers of newsletter
Yeah.
subscription base that would then go on a resume to
Yeah.
say, you know, I'd run this. So just make sure that you have all of your information that you're going to need. Think about your resume, think about the contacts you need for networking, and make sure that you have those on your own personal computer, obviously while protecting and being very aware of what's the company's and what's yours. So then within 15 minutes, it was shut off. Another thing that, you know, all gratitude to my colleague who also was laid off. She had been laid off before in the journalism world. And I did not know that your flexible spending account that day shuts off for all intents and purposes.
What does that mean?
So you are not allowed to spend any money in your flexible spending account past the day that you're laid off.
Wait.
So I had to go on a $1,500 spending spree. I got the call at like 5 p.m. So, or like 4 p.m. or something like
spend
that.
all that money that
All that day. So I bought contacts for 2 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But and you know, you could, if
So
there's
max it out early.
max it out early. If there's any past medical bills that you actually didn't use your FSA account for and you have the receipts for, you can after the fact go and retroactively apply for those and get money back.
Okay.
But it's basically anything that you are spending, it has to be spent on or before the day that you're laid off. Even though that is your money. It makes no sense.
FSA is not your friend. I'm sorry. I know the HSA comes with a high deductible. I know we've got to do just a podcast on the HSA versus FSA because the FSA is such a bad deal.
Yeah.
It really is. And I did not know that. I did not know that the day you are no longer employed by the company, you can't spend your own money that you've contributed. That seems illegal. That I'm gonna write a letter to somebody about that one because that's so bad. Okay, so you know, that's the FSA. What about healthcare in general?
So healthcare in general, you have a little bit more time. I think, it took me, I think it was like a Monday or Tuesday when this all went down, and we hadn't actually signed separation papers until I think Friday.
Okay.
I did have time, like not a lot of time.
Good on you for even knowing that.
And taking the time to review with a lawyer, because I do know that you get pressured to sign an NDA, to sign your separation paperwork, because the company wants it to be done as efficiently and at low cost to them as possible.
Yeah.
And they will tell you, for instance, our company will tell us this is not negotiable. I am going to tell our listeners right now, everything is negotiable. And the worst thing you can do is to not advocate for yourself, because the worst thing they can say is no.
Yep.
Yeah. And basically, all the power is in their hands, because what the paperwork essentially says is if you follow all of these things, you get severance, whatever severance they've agreed to. But your other option is not to sign, and then you don't get severance.
Right.
So, you're playing that game. So, they could always say, they could say no.
Yeah. The other thing is the lawyer. How did you find a lawyer? Haha. I know the answer to this one.
I have some friends and family who are lawyers.
That's my strategy too, is friends and family. I think one of the things we should do though is maybe find some resources.
Like, I'm wondering if I could use my Hyatt legal
from your company.
But yes, my legal services that I pay for through
to
my
review.
insurance. But then I don't know. They're probably acting in the best interest of the company. So I don't know what I would.
Yeah, we'll do
I don't
some
know any
research on
lawyers.
that and put that on lessthanexpert.com, because to review with an attorney is a really smart thing to do. And they may just say, this looks good, take the deal. Great. But they may also say, hey, you have this benefit to you, or why don't you ask about your remaining PTO, or whatever it is. It's worth reviewing. But yeah, that is a point in time where I would not be shy tapping into the friends and family network, because that's my plan.
And I will say, I don't know how it would be if you're paying a lawyer, but especially with the friends and family network, they're particularly looking at that legal document to make sure that there's nothing that is really going to screw you over. And, or there's nothing, weird in it, or, anything like that. They're not necessarily aware of what agreements the company made with you when they hired you. Correct. And so you need to make sure that you're advocating for yourself. This was not my situation, but like my bonus was next month. Is there something? And you can ask them, but you also need to make sure that you're advocating for yourself and aware of what what you're losing by getting laid off and what you could potentially get clawed back a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's huge. I mean, in the employee stock purchase plan, extra PTO.
Now, another thing that I will mention
Yeah.
is severance is taxed like a bonus. So only 50% of that, I think around that number might be slightly off, but
Interesting.
it's basically
know that.
you get half. The other half goes to the government
Interesting.
and automatically out of the
Look,
severance
okay,
paycheck.
that's terrible.
Yeah.
But wasn't in this big, beautiful bill, wasn't there a tax package for tips and bonuses to not be taxed the same? We'll have to,
I don't know the answer to
because
that.
that may have changed. We'll look into that
Yeah.
for this year and see if that's still the case. Hopefully not, but yeah, that's a major bummer.
Yeah.
It's like you need the money more than ever, and the government should be hands off because you're also going to go and collect unemployment,
Yes.
right? Like, why are they taxing it at half what you're getting?
If you're smart, you will.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Listen, thank you for learning the hard way. You walked so that others may run. No, that's so good to know because I had that idea in my head too, that you can't collect unemployment until you stop getting paid.
Yeah.
But that's good to know that it's when you stop working, you don't have a job.
Because it also gets paid out to you like a bonus. So it's not
Okay.
paid out to you weekly as if you're still working there.
Yeah.
It's paid out in one lump sum,
Yeah.
whatever the deal is with your
Okay.
company. So 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after, whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did you ask your company for some kind of document or statement saying this is no fault of Allison's. Allison did great work. We are parting ways with the department. Something to that effect. And do you think that's a good idea or wouldn't have helped?
I didn't, I'm not sure I can speak to whether or not it's a good idea because I'm in a non-traditional career path.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be different for like really corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel the need to have that. Also, my supervisor was so nice in saying like, listen, if you ever, and like I had a couple other people in the company reach out and say, if you ever need a reference, please, we'd be
Awesome.
happy to do it. So,
Yeah.
I felt like I didn't need to. Also, it's pretty clear in my resume on my website,
Mhm.
I'm very proud of the work we did
Mm-hmm.
that we did there. I think it was really good work. And it's clear if you go to that website that it's no longer
Yeah.
active. And so I think anybody in the world I'm in understands that magazines come and go
Right.
all the time.
Right.
Having one live for a year, a digital magazine live for a year, and then having it cut is
Par for the course.
par for the course. Yeah. So I didn't feel the need to really have it stated, but I think it might be the case in another industry you do.
Well, and I think to your point though about you had those good relationships, and so they were willing to do be a reference for you. That's huge. I would also say just being on the other end where I have had to lay people off, which is a terrible thing to do. It is so much better when the employee handles it with complete respect. It's a shocking thing, but I have seen employees shut down and become not a good situation, and I have seen employees handle it with grace, where this isn't their first rodeo, or they just know don't burn the bridge. And I've had those people hit me up like, hey, could you be a reference for me? Are you looking? And I will help them.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone's becomes ugly or scary, on behalf of the company, don't touch it, right?
Mhm.
Like that. So I think also keeping as calm as you can.
And just understanding, like, the person that's delivering the news to you,
It's probably not their choice.
it wasn't their choice,
Yeah.
and it was probably a number that
Right.
they were told you have to cut
Right.
this much, and that's just how it ended. And
in my case, it was always, we're making cuts. These people have to go. It was usually a temp situation, and I was their supervisor.
yeah,
It is not a fun, or like, I take no pride in these conversations. Like, I'll sweat. It's such a nerve-wracking thing, and it feels absolutely awful to be on the other end of that. And I am so grateful to the people who handled it with
Mhm.
just diplomacy.
So I asked the HR woman, I was like, is it okay if I reach out to my manager and ask
Mhm.
if she'll have a meeting with me later this week just to close up loose ends?
Mhm.
And she basically was like, I mean, nobody's ever asked that.
Yeah.
And if she's willing to, it's fine, but she
Yeah.
has no obligation to do it.
Right.
And she very kindly said yes. And we just had a great call
I
that,
love
you
that.
know, I was able to ask, which I genuinely wanted to know. Were there things that I could have done differently? Do you have any
Awesome.
advice or feedback for me, which is always important to take into your next job?
Mhm.
And then that was where she also was like, I would be happy to be a reference for you. So I feel like it's never a fun situation, but if you're able to kind of have that full, I do feel like I could go to her and ask
Yeah.
for a reference if I really wanted to or
Yeah.
needed to. And I just feel like we kind of closed the door on that chapter
Yeah.
in a way that had I never spoken to her again,
Yeah. You would always wonder.
I would have always
And it's
wondered.
so
Yeah.
hard, and I
Yeah.
honestly would never have thought to do that either. Like, I never would have. I mean, I don't know. You're my boss. You would end up paying. Yeah. So I would have to talk to you again, but
Yeah.
I would want to. But I mean, there were certain circumstances.
Yeah.
Yes, where
I will say though, I think it's worth asking, don't take it personally if the person says no,
Yeah.
because the person's obligation is really to the company, and anything that they say that's sort of off script after the case could get them in trouble, because there's nothing stopping someone from recording the conversation and using it against them or creating something. So, it depends on the company. There's a lot of coaching that happens usually. Usually layoff lists are done months in advance. I say go for it, ask for it, but don't take it personally
if they say no,
if they
and
say
it's probably
no.
not because of the person, it's because of a policy.
It's a policy, and there's it's hard because corporate America serves corporate America, and as you're in that role, there are things you can and cannot say, whether you like it or not, as close as you might be with someone, or, as a human, we want to give
Mhm.
each other that closure, but that person also has an obligation to the company and their job, their family, whatever it is. So I just want to say it's so emotional. It feels so personal. I want to try to cut some of that edge off if you ask for that and someone says no, or they just don't get back to you, because it might put them in a tough spot if the company is very aggressive.
That's a really good point.
Or
That's
just
a really good point.
a bigger company is going to probably have more policies
Right.
legally to protect
Yeah.
themselves.
On whether or
Right.
not they're even allowed to.
Yeah.
We have a very good mutual friend who is the head of HR, and we should have you back and bring her
That
on.
would be interesting.
Yeah, and get her. We should pepper her with questions and talk about this and how she, does hiring and layoffs and packages people out, because I do want to get into more of the tactics, but I want to get back to the specific of your experience.
Mhm.
Let's take a quick ad break so we can tell you about some of our fantastic ad partners that we have on the podcast. We have partnered with Aquila Sunglasses and Eyewear for 10% off of our listeners. So I will be checking that out. Have you checked out their site?
I have looked at their site. They've got lots of cute styles.
Very cute. It feels very LA, very on trend, nice styles, nice
Yeah.
options. I feel like I could be, like Hailey Bieber. Cute. I could never. I'm here for it though. Yeah, so for our listeners, Aquila Sunglasses, 10% off on their website, aquila.la, using the promo code LTE at checkout. Introducing Zevo Life, an exclusive patented superfood. Zevo Life, this is going to help us all get our greens and our vitamins, and they harvest plant protein. So if you're on a protein crazed diet like Katie and I are right now,
Yep.
this is a really good option to supplement. I love taking my greens in the morning when I first start my day. It just makes me feel better.
I feel like I'm getting a daily dose of vegetables and vitamins.
Yeah.
And protein. Awesome.
And the greens are good for your hair, for your skin, for your digestion. Zevo Life is giving our listeners 30% off. So go to zevo.life and enter promo code LTE at checkout. I have been trying to find the ultimate matcha brand in the ultimate matcha coffee shop in Austin. I think I may have found a really good online option for us with Mantra Matcha. So this is premium Japanese matcha. The site is adorable. They have great products, accessories, and different matcha blends. And you can get 15% off using the promo code LTE at mantramatcha.com. Am I going to spell it for them? I am. Ready? mantramatcha.com. Should I have made that a song?
You should have. It would have been cute.
Next time. Maybe next time I'll do that for y'all. But yeah, mantramatcha.com. Enter discount code LTE for your 15% off.
Introducing Copper North, where wellness works and luxury lasts through every night's sleep.
These are truly 100% mulberry silk and infused with copper, which is nature's multitasker for healthier skin and hair. So, copper is a natural antibacterial and collagen boosting material. It's going to help soften fine lines, reduce inflammation and breakouts, and help maximize your skincare. Because if you're like me, you prioritize those skincare products. Don't stop there by sleeping on a pillow that is probably covered in dust mites. Gross. Copper will kill dust mites, and it's great for your hair. It's going to help reduce frizz, keep your hair silky and smooth, and it's going to protect your blowout. And so we are thrilled to be able to offer our listeners a 15% discount. Visit coppernorth.com and enter LTE in the promo code at checkout for your 15% discount.
Can we go back to healthcare? Because
Yeah.
Ooh, healthcare.
What?
it's a doozy.
What do you do?
Healthcare is the thing that I wish I wasn't an expert on, but
I know you've been on, as your friend, I know you've been on quite the journey.
Yeah.
I want to take a few minutes and talk
Yeah.
about this.
So, I have been on the bought a plan through the Affordable Care Act when I was freelancing for 10 years. And this time I chose to stay on Cobra.
So you got laid off, and that was
So you
through
get
that
laid off,
company.
you automatically have the option to go onto Cobra. There are a few little details that I was not prepared for. I was on the most expensive plan through my company because it was so dirt cheap and it was amazing. Like
Yeah.
$0 deductible, all
Yeah.
of these benefits.
Oh,
That's
you
way more expensive on Cobra.
way more expensive on Cobra. Oh, way more expensive on Cobra.
Yeah.
4 times more expensive on
and
Cobra.
were you forced into the same? Did you have an option to
yes,
choose?
That's
Okay.
what I was unaware of, is that you are, for the rest of that year, that healthcare year, you're forced into staying into that same one. Now, you do have the option to change plans through Cobra through open enrollment. But here was the other thing that I got tripped up on is, because I have bought my healthcare through open enrollment through the
Right.
Affordable Care Act before, I have always known open enrollment is November 1st through December 15th.
Right.
So through Cobra, they still call it open enrollment, but it's not the same.
Oh, it's different dates?
It depends. You're essentially still getting healthcare through your old company. And so it depends on when their open enrollment is, which companies generally only have open enrollment for 2 weeks.
Right.
So I went end of November, skipped into,
No.
my computer to go choose this less expensive plan, and realized that I had totally missed open enrollment. Not only had I been grandfathered into the most expensive plan again, but they had raised their prices $150 a month.
Oh my God.
So I have been paying
That hurts.
Don't they want
an outrageous amount of money for healthcare this year. But
but
I've also
that's
taken advantage.
That's the thing. And I want to say that too. I don't think they warn you, or it's one of those things where, exactly like you were saying, you've been using this for 10 years. You probably see an email about open enrollment's coming up and you kind of gloss over it because in your mind, those dates are through the end of December.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. And I will say our company changed our open enrollment dates for the first time.
And it's going to be so confusing.
It'll be so confusing because we were used to that
for
November
people that are
timeframe.
laid off and are
Right.
enrolling in Cobra. Oh,
Yeah.
I hope they have been alerted.
I do too, because that is not something. Health insurance, we know, is a very broken system. And there's no warning. You are forced to pay it, right? Because I think the alternative is still, if you don't have health insurance, you're paying out of pocket, which is not affordable, or you're also getting a penalty still, right? If you don't.
I am not sure if the penalty actually, I think that was sort of
Done away with.
in
We will
one of these
confirm
yeah.
on Less Than Expert.
I don't think you get a penalty, but it's very dangerous to not have health insurance in this country because you could.
I mean, I had a it ended up being a burst cyst, but I thought I was having a burst appendix, and it was $8,000 for the CT scan. So what would I have done? Right? Who just has $8,000
at
lying
the
around?
very least?
Yeah.
You need emergency insurance
Yeah.
through the through healthcare.gov.
Yeah.
Which you pay less. You basically pay everything out of pocket. But if you had to go to an emergency room for some reason, there's at least a cap on what they're going to make you pay.
Does unemployment cover what you're paying for your high deductible plan? Would that cover it, or that would be all you would have?
Yeah, right.
Hard to say since I missed the boat on unemployment.
Okay, yeah. Wait, you missed it completely?
Yes. It is my biggest source of shame.
Okay, wait. No, there's no shame in this because you're walking, so others run. Explain this to me. There's a window of employment termination that a cutoff date to file?
No. This was all me. Biggest source of shame. Don't be like me, but also be great, have some
We're
grace for
learning.
yourself.
Yeah.
I did not realize. So I waited, I had all of this energy after I got laid off, but thought I wasn't eligible for 2 more months.
Yeah.
So I waited and waited and waited. And as those 2 months pass, I start putting the pieces into place to start my own company.
Right.
Again, so continuing my freelance journalism, starting my coaching company, all of this stuff. I was making no money, but I was forming an LLC and doing things like that. And by that point, I just didn't know how to figure out if I was eligible for unemployment, if I was actually pursuing independent work.
Right.
And rather than like sitting down one day and figuring it out, I have a touch of the ADHD, and it just seemed like a mountain that every time I went to go climb it, I just was clueless how to figure it out in a way that would both protect me legally, like I didn't want to run afoul of any rules,
of like double dipping,
even though I wasn't making any money,
or and like making you pay it back at some point when you weren't, you couldn't.
Totally. And it's so silly because during COVID, I lost a ton of work and I went on unemployment. They actually opened it up at that time for people who worked for themselves to get a little bit of unemployment money. And it was so easy. Like, you basically just told them how much you made for the week and they knocked that off of whatever you were eligible for unemployment if you were still working. But, that ended and I just did not know how to figure it out. And so by the time, way too many, like kind of a year later that I went to go do it, I realized I had just missed the boat and there was just no point in applying.
Okay, wait, what do you mean there's no point in applying?
For employment.
It like doesn't cut in for like 2 months. There's like wait times for everything, which is why you should do it immediately. I decided that my energy was spent elsewhere. I still didn't know the answer of like, if my entire social presence is that she owns her own company. And, I was happy to be applying for jobs. I'm always looking for jobs, if the right thing comes along. But I just did not know legally what I was eligible for or what I wasn't.
And then with Cobra, you just missed the actual open enrollment date.
Okay, wait.
Missing things has cost me a lot of money.
No, but that's, I mean,
we're
learning here.
We're learning because
you're helping so many people.
And I will say for Cobra, to their credit, obviously I called and made my feelings known about what had happened.
Right.
They sent me one letter in the mail.
Yeah.
That I saw open enrollment and I didn't read it as closely as I should have. But a single letter in the mail, which
pay attention. When that comes, pay attention.
Because anything else, if you're on, the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, if you're by a plan through them, I mean, you're going to get a million notices before it's time to enroll. So I was shocked by the single notice that I got. So they did send me a notice, but just read more closely all of the things.
Healthcare industry could do better.
With healthcare, have you seen like Cobra is better for you to be on than government sponsored?
It just depends. The plan I was on for Cobra is really good. And for a variety of personal reasons, I decided, I didn't really have an option not to stay on it after I'd been grandfathered in. I could have raised a bigger stink and gone off Cobra entirely and gone on the Affordable Care Act, and probably that would have been okay. Technically I wasn't eligible, but the guy I spoke to was like, you could make a big argument for it. But for a variety of reasons, I decided to stay on the plan I was on and basically just like spend this year catching up on all of the healthcare, doctors, things like that I need. And, frankly, it's such good insurance that they've covered most of it. So that's been really, really good.
Okay. I'll come back because while we're chatting, I'm just researching a little bit on unemployment because I really want to get this right for our listeners. And it looks like it varies state by state. So for instance, in the state of Texas, they do say apply as soon as you're laid off from the job because it impacts the timing, impacts how much you can get, which is interesting to me. And I want to wrap my head around that. But I want to have more healthcare talk because you've had the time of your life this year. I have stuck on this plan. Can we talk about this? Because this has been the funniest thing. You're stuck paying an unfortunate amount of money.
Nearly $900 a month.
You're getting a whole lot out of it.
My plan this year was to catch up on my healthcare in a way that I've cost them more money than they've cost me.
Good for you.
And ladies and gentlemen, I have succeeded.
Yes. Can we get a little bit of a highlight of some of the things you've been able to do?
Yeah, I like the thing I hate the most about healthcare in this country is it's
Yeah.
just not preventative. And
Right.
all those little things that you're like, I'm fine, but I
Right.
would love to see a doctor to figure out
Oh,
if I
God.
could be better.
We have this conversation
Oh,
every day.
Yeah.
Like, stop telling me everything's fine. It's just my age.
Or
It's just my
everything's fine. Just take this pill.
Yeah.
for the
Exactly.
rest of your life.
Yeah, let's get some panels done. Let's do an assessment.
Totally. And so
okay,
like, in the past, you go to a doctor
yeah,
and they say often like, we could do these things for you.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, you're calculating in your head how much it's going to cost you and you say,
yeah,
I'm fine. So, I found a great new gastroenterologist for a chronic health condition I have.
right, okay,
And I was like, I'm fine. I just wanted to like have a check-in. And she
Yeah.
was like, but could you be better? And for the first time in my life,
we're gonna share that doctor's.
she was an incredible doctor,
Yeah.
Dr. Lila Mansour. She is
Okay.
the only doctor who gives a time of day to chronic illnesses, especially for women, with Texas Digestive Disease Consultants is I think the
Yeah.
practice that she's with.
Okay,
And so she was like, I would love to do an ultrasound.
Awesome.
I had a fiber scan on my liver.
great,
I got a colonoscopy, just like all of these things. She
Yeah.
was like, just to make sure that your system is working the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to be working. She put me on a 2-week course of medication that has essentially like cured me, which
Oh,
it normally
that's
costs
amazing.
$2,000 out of pocket. My
Yeah.
insurance covered it entirely.
Yay,
Uh,
high deductible.
And in the past I had heard about it, but it was
Yeah.
it doesn't work for a lot of people. And with
Yeah.
the costs that I knew it was going to be, I was just like, I am not worth trying it.
Yeah.
Like, God, if I had known this, I would have done it 10 years ago.
Oh my.
Yeah, all of these things. So that was amazing.
Yeah. Wait,
I know.
Every time I see you, you're like, this is what I've done.
I know. And it's truly things.
Yeah.
It's not just like
Yeah.
things to cost, like that's not that. That's just a perk that I'm costing my
Yeah.
insurance money. But it's things that like I am ending the year so much healthier than I was at the beginning of the year, doing things that I probably would not have felt like I had the money to do.
So you made that Cobra plan work for you.
I made that
and
Cobra
made it
plan
worth
Yeah.
every penny. that
work
you
for me.
Did you sit down and crunch numbers, or were you more like, I'm just gonna do this test. I'm just gonna see this doctor.
Because I've learned my lesson in the past,
Yeah.
anytime they prescribe a test, I do call my insurance to
Yeah.
say, what's this going to cost me?
Okay.
Which is a great hack. Like you can
Yeah.
say yes to a test, sign up for it, and you still have time to cancel. Call
Yeah.
your insurance. They can give you an estimate of what it's going to cost you.
Excellent. Okay.
Um,
And then that gives you more power to kind of fight a bill if you get a road
gives you
bill.
a card to fight a bill. It also gives you a power. Like I feel like in our healthcare insurance, you never know if something's going to cost you $200
Right.
or $1,200.
Right.
And that might make the difference in
And you
whether or
can
not you wanna do it.
always fight it and never just pay a healthcare bill.
Yeah.
Never.
My mom just yesterday came to me and was like, her insurance company denied something, wouldn't for it. It was like a $500 test. She called the company and said, my insurance company isn't covering this for me. Like, what is there some out of pocket max pay that you're going to make me pay if I'm not covered? And they cut it in half.
Yeah.
See?
So it's
It's-
like,
it's all-
worth calling.
It's worth
sometimes.
calling. It's all made up. I'm sure I've already told the story on one of our episodes. I had a $1,600 hospital bill last year. And I got the bill and there were redundant lines. But with different rates. It was really confusing. I called the hospital. The hospital was like, no, you got to call the doctor. I said, well, it was an emergency room doctor. So I don't know who that was.
How?
And you're the billing department that sent me this bill. So they kept kind of giving me the runaround, but I didn't just pay it. And so I called and I called and I called. They said, well, give us a month. We'll get back to you. A month later, I never get a call. I get an email saying there's an update to your bill. I log in, $0. I call them. They say, oh, yeah, you don't owe anything. That was $1,600. If I had just paid, I'd be out $1,600 and they completely wiped it. I'm also seeing stories now of people using ChatGPT they drop their bill in there and they say, look at this and tell me what this means. And it's helping give people language for ask this. This is a redundant line item. You need a clarification on this code.
Yeah.
And so if you don't, I think you can just call the doctor or the hospital or whatever it is, insurance company. But if you're feeling nervous and you need a script, there are tools now for to do that.
The other thing, I'm not sure if there was a law that made this more possible, but I'm sure you could do it today too. But during COVID, when I lost a ton of money and went on unemployment for a little bit, I received like a $900 bill for some blood tests that I knew was probably not going to be covered by my insurance, but that had happened before COVID hit, but I didn't get the bill till then. And I had no idea it was going to be that high. And so I called them and I said, look, I'm going to be completely frank with you. I've lost so much work because of COVID. I flat out cannot pay this bill. So what do you want me to do? And they had a pay rate for basically unemployment. So they
See?
cut the bill in half, and then they can put you on a payment plan if you need to do that too.
And because they want
So
some money rather than no money.
yeah,
So those are always a medical bill, and I will let a medical bill go into collections while I'm figuring. Like if it takes that long,
Well, especially if there's questions around the bill and
I'm not advocating. Please don't let anything else go into collections that will seriously ding your credit score and cause other problems. But when it comes to a medical expense, it is so broken and confusing. I think you take the time you need to make sure that you've got it right.
there's also this great, I just want to make sure I'm getting this right, Substack that I believe is called First Aid Kit.
Okay.
And it's a group of First Aid Kit
Aid
on
Kit,
Substack.
okay.
And it's a group of journalists who just write the best explainers, pieces, things like that on how to navigate the medical system. And they
Yeah.
have resources for what to do if you can't pay a bill, what to do if you think you were billed erroneously, like what, everything. So definitely look at that because how to fight your insurance company if they should be covering something and they're not. So there's definitely resources out there. Or if you need something that you really can't afford, like how to figure out the nonprofit hospitals or go to the hospital and what to say to them to figure out, a lot of hospitals will have funds of money for essentially people who can't pay for the care that they need. So, definitely check that out and check out other resources because there are a lot around there that will help you navigate all of this.
And if we have a listener out there who works in the healthcare industry or has also navigated this, please hit us up. We'd love to interview you because this is such a complicated topic that every American struggles with. And so we'd love to do a follow-up story just on the healthcare piece, and would love to hire you to do the article for
definitely.
lessonexpert.com because I think it's really helpful to empower other people on how to ask the right questions. You don't know what you don't know.
I think I'm eligible for COBRA through January, and I'm just going to keep it
Okay.
till then. But then I have to switch off the plan. And I was just looking at plans last night, and they're a doozy this year.
Doozy this year. And
Yeah.
so if you're okay, can we have an honest conversation about the finances now? We were talking about this earlier, and I know we've talked about this. It's really helpful to hear some of the specifics.
Yeah. I am not sure how I did it
Yeah.
because I was getting paid generously at the previous job, but not outrageously. But I somehow saved a ton of money while I was there.
Okay, so you had some runway.
So I had some runway.
Do you know about how much? Like, I don't need a number, but like 6 months.
I had a little bit. Well, I had what I thought was a little bit less than 6 months, although it's lasted me a lot longer than 6 months. So I think I might have calculated that wrong.
Did you cut expenses though? Yeah, like
I cut well, I mean, I say I cut expenses, but of course life happens. And so my house decided to break right when I couldn't afford to fix it. So I've cut life expenses, but I've spent more on my house this year than I ever imagined possible. I think it's a mix of, I did cut expenses, I'm still making sure like networking and having a community and being social is still so important, both for networking and getting the word out there, but also for your mental health. Yeah. So, I didn't totally cut expenses, but I am not getting a coffee out every day. I cook in most nights that I'm not going out with friends. I'm just more conscious of where I'm spending my money. I'm also pretty good from my previous freelance thing of like every month the bill comes, I look through that bill, I make sure everything's right. I cancel things. If you have subscriptions that you're not using, cancel them. If you have subscriptions that you still want, but you're not sure you can afford, cancel them because often when you cancel, they say, can we keep you around for $10 more? And you're like, yes, for $10 I'll stay.
Radio did that for me. In my head, I was like, I think I was paying $20 or $30 a month. And I was like, no, I'm only going to pay if it's $4 a month. Like, not going to happen. I called them and guess what they charged me by canceling? $4 a month. And that's what I kept it. That's what I pay.
Yeah.
It's worth it to call and cancel because suddenly they've got a deal.
Yeah,
so
they all have deals. So that is great. I have had a good amount of work coming in, but it's been in fits and starts. It's a roller coaster. So I think that's what's also helped me stretch it out. I'm now in a situation where I'm really trying to start to market my business and start to get things going because I'm about at the end of the runway. So I had things that in the middle that have really helped me stretch it. But now I really need to get serious about making some serious money to launch this thing.
Okay, I'd love to do a follow-up episode with you on this and the building of your business specifically.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you will be hearing from Allison again. Until then, can you tell people where they can find you, how they can call you about the creative mindset coaching business? Because I think that, and I love if like, let's talk about that for a few minutes, because I think also just hearing what you've been through, you're the coach I want, right? Like I want someone who's,
Because
you've lived it.
You're probably going to live in a minute.
Yeah. So you had the training, you've had your training, but you've also had this life experience with hard lessons learned. And that is so valuable. So let's talk about that, and let's tell people how they can hire you.
Yeah,
for that.
definitely. Yeah. So, coaching is just, I fell in love with it after I had a coach for a little bit. But it's just great because it helps you figure out what you want to do and what you need and what's right for you. The other reason I think coaching is really important is whether or not you're newly unemployed and trying to figure out what to do next, or trying to navigate the job market, which is really difficult, or whether you are employed and are trying to launch a creative project or launch a company, or I work with a lot of that type of people as well, people who are writing memoirs. I work a lot with people who have passionate dream about what they want to do and are having trouble doing it. But it is the hardest thing is when you don't have a boss, figuring out what to do when.
A mentor.
Exactly.
It's mentorship.
Exactly.
Someone to help set the bar for you.
So a coach can both help you figure out what's holding you back and what's keeping you stuck from doing these things that you want to do, whether that's you need more clarity or, but then also be sort of that boss or that mentor that says, okay, what are you going to do this week, Amanda?
Yeah.
And then next week, you bet your butt I'm going to ask you, did you do these things?
Yeah, accountability.
Or, do you need me to check in with you midweek and see how it's going? Or
I need that with my ADHD. But
yeah.
That's why it's been so critical to have a partner on this podcast too. Because get out of here with that face. You're very helpful. Because I need a sounding board, and Katie calls me on my BS and and keeps me on task, and is always there to like, are we gonna record for I need that, because if I don't have accountability and someone to help, like I need the partner. I need someone to bounce ideas with, and that's what Katie's been for
me. The way I like to explain it is like everybody needs colleagues.
Yes.
And so whether or not you have them or you need to create that for yourself, whether it's through hiring a coach or through just somebody that is in your kind of circle of trust that you can bounce ideas off of, which happens a lot in the freelance journalism community. You need to find the people that are going to be checking in with you and kind of holding you accountable to what you want to do, and also help you figure out what you do want to do, and empowering you to like, absolutely, you can launch this podcast. You have everything you need to do that. And people need to hear what you want to say, right? So that's coaching.
How can we find you?
You can find me via my website, www.allison.McNearney, McNearney.com, or my email, which is just firstname.lastname@gmail.com. Reach out to me. I'd be happy. All first consultations are absolutely free to figure out if this is something that might work for you. But yeah, I'd love to chat with you. And if you have any questions about coaching or, whether or not you're in a position to work together, please hit me up and I'd be happy to help out.
Awesome.
Amazing.
We'll make sure to have all that in the show notes and on lessthanexpert.com. And then, as I mentioned, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
Willing to come hang at my dining table and basically take care of my kids. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was great. Very vulnerable conversation, but so relevant, because we're seeing this happen.
It's happening everywhere.
Everywhere, every day. And, I feel like I'm bracing for it. And so this has been really, really helpful. The next episode will be what I'm doing to prepare for that. So this was a really great primer. So much appreciated, Allison. And we look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this podcast.